latest on NFL free agency and some players that could be on the move. We've got a list of the NFL free agents, top ones overall. Number 1 on the list, Le'Veon Bell. Number 2, Nick Foles. How about that? We think that we know where Foles could end up. What about Bell? Bridgewater's on the list. Trent Brown, Landon Collins, Trey Flowers, Kwan Alexander, Earl Thomas, Tyron Matthau, Terrell Williams, and some other ones. Where could some of these free agents be heading as we're getting closer to the countdown of NFL free agency? Football at 4 every day right here on the Sports Bash. John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN. He, like all guests, appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline, and we are getting closer to that day. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Mike?
All is peachy here. I spent most of my day, believe it or not, in 2019 standing in my house with the cable man. Probably.
Well, you got to get it done. If you move, it's one of those issues where you got to sit and get that, what'd you get, a 10 to 10 window, 10 o'clock in the morning to 10
It was
o'clock
actually odd. The lady was like 7:30 a.m. to 10. I'm thinking 7:30 in the morning.
That's not bad, though. That's not bad.
No. Well,
less than a 3-hour, just over a 3-hour window, that's not bad.
Let me tell you, I was still in my house at 12:20.
Yeah, well, see, that's typically what it is. They usually give you morning or afternoon, and that's what you kind of say. You're like, oh, okay. Do you want 3 weeks to show up?
Yeah.
But they got you by the short hairs, as they say.
They do. Well, I now see a lot of the reasoning why people have just cut the cord and just said, you know what, I'm not dealing with this.
I advocate. I'm getting very close. I haven't done that, but
I am like
I'm
halfway
very,
there.
Very close.
I'm halfway there. I have both. I'm half and half. It's just, you know.
Well, so do I. And my wife and I spend, when we do watch television, 90% of it is streaming. So I'm saying to myself, why am I paying for this cable? So I'm getting very close. But then the minute I do it, I know that something will pop up and I'll want to watch, and I won't have the easy ability to watch.
Yeah, like do you envision the NFL at all, like getting close to a time where they would break away from broadcast networks?
No. You're talking about a league that.
So, like, you shouldn't be fearful. My point is,
okay, they generate $15 billion a year now. $15 billion. Over half of that, comes directly from television money. That's the golden goose. That is, and I was just talking about this interestingly enough earlier today with pro wrestling. Interestingly enough, I don't think people realize. And this goes for every major sport, including Major League Baseball, NBA, how reliant they are on television money. If it dried up tomorrow, these leagues you think are Goliath would be in deep, deep trouble. That's how important that money is to these leagues and their popularity. We were talking about merchandising yesterday. It's a drop in the bucket compared to TV money. That's like pennies compared to billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So they can't, and the hope is that TV executives, we all talk about who's the most powerful people in sports, and we say Roger Goodell and Adam Silver. It's TV executives. Those are the most powerful people in sports because they have the power to say, I want to go in a different direction. I'm not going to pay this. And that would change professional sports overnight.
Yeah.
Overnight.
Now, do you think there would be a scenario where the TV executives would step in and say, I don't like this 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock setup. We want to do something different?
Yeah, they have incredible power. They could do that if they wanted to. And they already have with the prime time. And, people will say, why do World Series games start so late, things like that, why the NBA championship games, why the Super Bowl. Because they want it. They want it in prime time. And you have Thursday Night Football. We talk about that all the time, how bad the product has been. because of a lot of reasons. No preparation, could be bad teams, bad matchups on short weeks, whatever. They want it there, and they have the power because it generates ratings for them. And more importantly, from their perspective, it generates viewers that will sit and watch and won't DVR and won't try to go back and watch and fast forward through all the commercials. So that's why, despite declining ratings, sports have remained popular when it comes to revenue because it's the only thing they can guarantee people will sit and watch for.
Yeah, and we know that so much so that they put the combine on television, right? I mean, they're finding any kind of I got to be honest, I haven't kept up with the AAF ratings this week. I missed all that because I was moving, so I didn't get a chance to really see if the league has continuously grown. It kept growing.
Well, there was a great article on ESPN today about the combine and how it's changing and how it's become more of a TV environment, and a lot of the scouts and GMs are saying, why are we even here?
The GMs and the scouts are saying this?
Yeah, because they could do it from television, basically, is what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get a feel of a guy doing that stuff on TV if you could, up close.
Well, from their perspective, I don't think people understand. You'll see these draft nicks and all these draft people, and God bless them, they've developed a cottage industry, and they put a great import on these measurables, and it's not as important to NFL teams as they think it is. And that's their perspective, and I encourage everybody to read that article because it gives you sort of the behind the scenes of what goes on at the combine. I mean, those measurables, I was talking about this with Josh a while ago, are sort of exclusionary more than inclusionary. Like if you're just an awful athlete, they'll probably cross you off the list. But if you show up and do what you're supposed to do, that's really all it's about.
Right. I mean, I can understand.
The medicals are more important than anything else.
I can understand them saying, look, the better players aren't doing what we want them to do anymore, so this is a waste of my time. But if you're trying to find second, third, fourth round guys, isn't that a place where you would start?
Well, yeah, as I said, the important part from NFL teams, the most important part is the medical evaluations and the ability to talk to the prospects and get a feel for them. That stuff's important, but you can do that in other ways. And they do it in pro days. They have the top 30 visits. So you can sort of get that done in different ways. So those things are always very important. I think there was a great comparison between Hunter Renfrow and Metcalf. You remember when you've probably seen the viral photo of him that went all over the internet. Wide receiver, 6'4", 225, just shredded, 1.8% body fat. Ridiculous athlete, but he's got the short area quickness of the Queen Elizabeth. I mean, all that bulk has, and as a receiver, you got a guy like Hunter Renfrow, and his agent put up a combination of the two. And then one guy looks like Mr. America, and the other guy looks like some schlub you wouldn't think could ever play professional football. Then he put up their stats against Alabama. Renfro's a superstar in the college level, and he's all this production. And the one scout told his agent, I would never draft him, but he'll probably be a starter for us. And you think about that. And it's because of, and I tweeted about this, it's because of this groupthink mentality. So the scouts know he can play, but they're concerned that if it doesn't work out, then they'll look bad. And you look worse. If you take the guy who's the best athlete in the world and fails, you can go, well, everybody thought he was going to be great. But if you take the chance on the Tom Brady, on the Hunter Renfrow, who's not supposed to be a superstar player, and they turn out to be a superstar. It's great, but you're not going to lose your job over it. And if they fail, you're going to lose your job over it.
There's so much, a lot of interesting things around the combine and all that stuff. But it's seemingly every more and more, right? The pro days is where all this is kind of going down, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pro days are important. I think a little bit more important than the combine, because you see teams are obviously targeting certain players, and they can get a better feel for them. And also the top 30 visits you're allowed to have. 30 players come to your facility. Those are always important. Indicates you at least have, at the bare minimum, a cursory interest in a particular prospect. But most of it is film work and evaluation. And then the most difficult part is trying to figure out the aspect that nobody can figure out, because you can't put a number on it. And that's somebody's personality and how they're going to handle life as an NFL player.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, whoever can figure that out is going to make a lot of money. And I don't think you can figure it out, because human beings are flawed. And that's it.
Yeah. We know this time of the year we see veteran players who have contracts, but teams end up either cutting them to save cap space, restructuring, or trying to trade. A couple of these names are popping up right now, and some of them might have some interest locally here. Jordan Howard, the running back. Joe Douglas was part of that team that drafted him in Chicago. You got Randall Cobb's name kind of getting out there. We've heard some other names recently. John Ross out with the Cincinnati Bengals. So do you think that is the type of player that, if they can't be a big player in free agency, that's the route Howie Roseman more likely goes?
Yeah, and I kind of said that yesterday as well. The John Browns of the world. You mentioned Jordan Howard.
Yeah, what do you think Howard, though, makes sense? Because I don't know. To me, he was kind of, I don't know. He kind of miscast it out there in that offense.
As I said, there's levels. Like I think ultimately the Eagles want a 3-down running back, a good 3-down running back, but that's not easy to find. So is he a 3-down back? No. But would he be an upgrade over the committee approach and the way they've handled it recently? Yes. So it wouldn't be my plan A, but it wouldn't be the worst plan C in the world. He's a better runner, first and second down runner, than anybody you have on the roster right now. And then if you can get a third down back and sort of cobble it together that way, then you can improve. There's many different ways to improve, but I think ultimately the goal, and they've been working for this, and I've mentioned it dating back to Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook, they've wanted a real 3-down back for a long time. They just haven't been able to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Howard's interesting. Mark Ingram's another, but he's a free agent, and he seems like a guy who would. What about Tevin? We've talked about Ingram a little bit, but what about Tevin Coleman? Would he be in the price range?
Well, yeah, he would be, and he would be my first choice, at least in free agency. And again, I'm not including Le'Veon Bell. I'm not saying from a football perspective, Le'Veon Bell would be the perfect player for this situation. I just don't think it's realistic. So, again, you try to get better. You can't always get the best player. You just try to get better at each position. And I don't think there's any doubt. There's a lot of names out there. Coleman's one, Ingram's one, Howard's one. If they were able to get any of these players, they would be better than what you have right now.
Yes.
So that's an upgrade.
There's a text message that we got earlier that we were kind of going back and forth of. Jeff Mosher, of course, on Thursday does the first 2 hours of the show. He says, would love if the Eagles got Le'Veon Bell or even Mark Ingram, but do you guys think it's more likely to get a running back in free agency or the draft? So I'll let you kind of weigh in on the conversation we were having earlier.
Well, I think it's more likely in free agency because the draft isn't very deep, certainly at the top. I mean, if you're talking about 25th overall, there's one guy in that conversation, and that's Josh Jacobs from Alabama, and I don't think he's going to hit 25. So I don't think that would be available. Then if you start talking second and third round, if a Devin Singletary falls to you, a lot of people have said he's a Shady McCoy type player. I don't necessarily like when people bring up stars because if you're expecting them to be Shady McCoy, it's probably not going to happen. But that's the type of player he is as far as his ability to move and things like that. And maybe he can project down the line as a 3-down running back because he's got that kind of skill set. But if you're looking for an immediate upgrade, I don't think that's one of the worst positions in the draft this year, running back. So I think you're more likely to find help, certainly immediate help, in free agency because there's only one guy, and that's Jacobs.
Yeah, and running back in the draft has been really odd. It's been like you don't draft a guy in the first round, but now it's like running back is kind of like cool again, maybe. I don't know, right? You've seen running backs go higher recently. Yeah,
a certain type of running back is, and the Todd Gurley's, the Christian McCaffrey's, the Le'Veon Bells, and it's 3-down running backs who don't have to come off the field unless you want to take them off the field. Those are the guys that create issues around the league. Alvin Kamara would be in that category as well, but they're hard to find. It's the Eagles have correctly pointed out that they've won a Super Bowl using the committee, and they feel they can do it again. So there are different ways to go about things and different ways to succeed, and factually they're correct, but it's no doubt that they wanted to improve that position for a long time, and they continue to want to improve it. But there aren't a lot of Le'Veon Bells in the world. That's what makes it difficult.
I like Le'Veon Bell. He'd be a good pickup for them.
He would be the perfect pickup. He really would. He would take. He's exactly what this offense needs. He can, you could argue that he would come in here as the second best receiver on the team. That's how good he is. I don't think people realize how good he is as a receiver. Number one, he hasn't played a while, so people kind of forget. And then what nobody talks about and what's so important to NFL coaches is pass protection. He's one of the best blitz pickup guys in the NFL when he decides to play. Mm-hmm. He would be perfect for any offense, not just the Eagles.
Yeah, and these other guys, they all, Ingram, Tevin Coleman, Jordan Howard, they're all guys who are, not quite
they're committee guys. They're generally first and second down running backs. Certainly with Howard and Ingram, they're 2-down guys, and then you bring in the third down back. Coleman's a little bit, I think, has the potential to do a little bit more, but I don't think he's ever going to be in the realm of those great 3-down backs.
And can he stay healthy?
Yeah, and that's part of it as well. So if you're going that, it's committee, and you got to get a third down back as well. Maybe it turns out to be Corey Clement. But it's hard. It's hard to find 3-down backs.
Yeah, and one thing that's hard, too, to find is quarterbacks, and we talked a lot the last couple of days. Not a lot, but we've talked about the Rosen stuff, and there's a lot of back and forth on this, whether or not they're actually trying to move him or not.
Well, I mean, it'd be silly to say we're drafting. That's what kind of surprised people when the rumors started coming out. And remember, Cliff Kingsbury's a rookie coach. He's never coached in the NFL. The last thing you want to do is say, we're taking Kyler Murray. Because what does that do? That tells you have to trade Josh Rosen, and everybody else knows it, and then they're not going to give you as much. If they know you got to move them, so it lessens the market for a really attractive player, or at least who should be a really attractive player. So if Kingsbury was shooting his mouth off in Indianapolis, that's a big mistake. And now the Cardinals are trying to scale back on it because there's no way you want to highlight and say, look, we're taking Kyler Murray. We want to get rid of this guy. We took 10th overall. And I said it again today, every team in the NFL should want Josh Rosen. Because at the bare minimum, even if you have a superstar quarterback, he's locked in under his rookie deal for years 2, 3, and 4, which would be so cheap for a backup quarterback of that caliber. And if the worst happens, your starter gets injured, to have a quarterback with that kind of talent as your backup, it's pretty good.
John McMullen on the NFL. By the way, a lot more will be happening in the next couple of days, and obviously some trade names are going to be coming out. Trey Flowers, top free agent to keep an eye on, too. Defensive end, the Eagles with Michael Bennett, if they let him go, they could be in the market for an end. Robert Quinn, his name has come up as a possible trade guy from the Dolphins. The Giants, they might be ready to move on from Olivier Vernier, and he's a guy that they just signed 2 years ago, although signs kind of look like they're going to keep him now. But it looks like some bigger names might be on the market, could be on the street, John, by Monday.
Yeah, and there's a lot. Howie's been at the forefront of this as a guy willing to trade. I think there's a lot of newer blood and positions of power in the NFL. And they are more willing to trade than the old guard, which was there used to be the trade market was nil. And you just hear a lot of players who are getting shopped. And it's not even necessarily getting shopped, but you're willing to listen. And it's pervasive all over the league. And I think you're going to see more trade movement as well than you typically and normally do, and I think that's increasing year by year.
Yeah, the trade, new ways of thinking, more ideas. Trades have become a bigger part of the NFL. Guys want to get their hands on guys earlier, even if we don't utilize you now, get you in our system, run our offense so we can utilize you next year. One name, what about Deshaun Jackson? You think interest there?
No, I mean, I know everybody from the Eagles' perspective. I know everybody likes to look back, and I always say, stop looking in the rearview mirror, start looking out the window about where you're driving. Look, they need a speed receiver. He still can run. He's one of the greatest deep threats in the history of the NFL. You look at his age, though. You look at his contract. He's the type of player that when the descent happens, it's going to happen quickly because he is sort of a one-trick pony. And once you lose a step, it's probably not going to be all that effective. So I do think the Eagles want a speed receiver, but I think they'll go younger. I think they'll go cheaper. And I think you could say that's going to be the theme for most positions, although Howie always supplements that with the Chris Longs of the world. As free agency sort of moves on,
right,
and you have that second tier, that's where he goes and gets the veteran players on sort of nice deals.
Somehow we manage to do it every day, talk a lot of football, and football with McMullen here on The Bash again tomorrow, getting ready, previewing NFL free agency and what else is happening as that all starts on Monday with legal tampering. I love it. All right, pal.
All right, thanks, Mike.